I was sitting in a bar on a South Sea island somewhere down near the equator. You know the kind. One of those cheap gin mills with a fan in the ceiling and beads for a door and some clown sitting over in the corner staring at the tabletop. It was a sultry morning in the tropics and it was already hot. Suddenly the beads parted and a broad walked in. A broad. She was the most classically beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. She was carrying a cello. I thought for a minute there I'd been drinking too much gin because there was a bright light between her legs. But when she moved, I saw it was just the sun shining through, hitting me right in the eyes. When she walked across the floor, my mind split in two. I couldn't decide if I was looking at a Grecian goddess come to life or one of those sultry Madonnas you see leaning against a lamppost in Paris. When she got to the other side of the room, she pulled out a chair and sat down and started playing her cello. The music that came out was like velvet-covered diamonds. And very soon, my insides began to melt and form into the shape of an arrow that was pointed directly at her. Oh, I wanted her all right. But then I realized I had to have her. You ask some joker crawling around in the desert if he wants a glass of water. It's a stupid question. Of course he does. He's got to have it or he'll die. The way I felt about her. I didn't know how I'd go about it, though, because she seemed so cool and pristine like an ice princess. She stopped playing that beautiful music after a while and picked up her cello and headed for the beads. Just before she went to step out, she turned and threw me a glance I had to squint from because my eyebrows went up in smoke. Needless to say, it was a hot look. She was the kind of woman who could keep her head in the clouds because she had a furnace burning down below. She could go from heaven to hell and back again in a second, and I wondered if I could handle that. I'd either fry or freeze, but I had to try. By the time I caught up with her, she was lying naked on the beach, spread eagle with a hat over her face. I leaned over and picked up the hat. I was ready for anything but what I saw. A beautiful bouquet of flowers with petals made of silver chimes. Her eyes looked like the eyes of a trapped doe, and I leaned over to gently kiss her. Suddenly, she rolled me over on my back and sat down on me with a low guttural growl that sounded like a tiger sitting down to lunch. I don't know if I was scared or happy or both. I do know that the last thing I felt like was a sheep being swallowed by a boa constrictor, and then I was gone. When I finally came to, I could hear her playing her cello off in the jungle somewhere, and I just started laughing at the sun. Well, that all happened a long time ago. She was the most mysterious woman I ever met. I thought I understood the fire in her, because I'm like that. But I could never understand the icy distance she could throw between us with just the sound of her voice. But it didn't seem to matter anyway, so I just gave up trying to figure her out. I won't say I love her. That's a word I reserve for gin on the rocks on a hot afternoon. But I absolutely adore her. don't you think it's about time? I mean, don't you think it's about time? You know, it's like taking a trip from New York to L.A., you know. You pack all your stuff first thing in the morning, you throw it in the car and take off. Across the George Washington Bridge, out across New Jersey, past the little towns and the farms and the pastures with the cows and the horses in them. And about noontime, you're in Scranton, Pennsylvania, hunting around for a lunch stop. So you pull in and you have some lunch. Well, after lunch, you figure, well, I don't want to go right back out on the road again. So you take a walk down by the river. Watch the water flowing by. Sun's warm, sky's blue, the birds are singing. So you lean back there in the field and you take a snooze. Well, late in the afternoon, you wake up, you go, yikes, I better get going. So you hop in your car and you take off. All right, now here's a point I want to make here, see? For a few short moments there, you forgot about where you came from and forgot about where you was going because you was living in the here and the now. All right, say you drive all night. The next day, about noon, you're hunting around for another lunch stop there in Hannibal, Missouri. You find a lunch stop, you pull in, you start eating, you think, Hannibal, Missouri? Wait a second, man. This is Mark Twain's hometown. Wow! So you go running out of there after lunch and look around where Mark used to live and write his stuff. You walk down the same streets where Tom and Huck walked down. You see the white fence Tom got his friends to paint up there on the hill as a cave where Tom and Becky got lost and found Injun Joe. You say, wow, man, I think I'll stay here for the night. So the next morning you get up, you take a ride in a riverboat. 3-4 days later, you say, well, I guess I'll get back on the road again, get going where I was headed. There you are, see? You forgot for a longer amount of time where you came from and where you was going, because you was living in the here and the now. All right, well, this happens all the way across the country. Each lunch stop, you stay a little longer, till finally, someplace in New Mexico, you pull into a lunch stop, you eat your lunch, and you say, that's it. That is it. I ain't moving from this spot. So you go around, you start looking around the town. You start meeting the people. You get involved in the education, in the politics. You get involved in the arts and the entertainment, in the sports. You get a job. You get married, build a house, raise a family. You join a religion. And pretty soon, you've forgotten completely where you came from, and you've forgotten completely where you was going because you're living in the here and the now in this town. Until one day some guy comes along and says, hey, I know you from New York. You say, New York? Get out of here. Says, yeah, you was living there. You was taking a trip to L.A. And he says, get out of here, pal. Listen, I was born here, I live here, I'm gonna die here. See, you totally forgot where you came from, totally forgot where you was going. You've been living in the here and the now in this town. You got all involved in it. All right, you get the idea. All right, now let's take a little larger view. The Earth, the world, the whole Earth here is a lunch stop. That's right. You started from someplace way over there and was going to another place way over there in the galaxy. About noon, you're hunting around for a lunch stop. You see this little planet down here. You fly in, you stop, and you go, wow, would you look at this place? This is gorgioso. Wow, the sky is blue. There's fresh air to breathe. The sun is warm. There's animals and green trees and meadows and rivers and oceans. There's cities and all these people and all this production going on. This is great. I'm going to stay right here. All right, so you start getting involved in the education and the politics. You get involved in the arts and the entertainment, the sports. You get a job. You raise a family. You join a religion. And pretty soon, you see, you totally forgot where you came from, totally forgot where you was going, because you've been living in the here and the now. Till one day, some guy comes along and says, hey, I remember you from the home planet. You say, the home planet? What are you talking about? He says, yeah, you was going to go way over there on the other side of the galaxy. And you say, what? What are you talking about, man? What is it, science fiction? Get out of here. Listen, I was born here, I live here, I'm gonna die here. Because you
totally forgot where you came from, where you was going. You gotten all involved in everything, the work there. Well, don't you think it's about time? Don't you think it's about time you had them add up your tab? You pay it up and get out of here. I mean, how many hamburgers can you eat? I've had it up to here with their apple pie. Well, that's what I got them doing. They're adding up my tabs. It's gonna take a while. It's a long one. Second they got it added up, I pay for it. And I'm back in the ship and I am out of here, pal. I'll tell you what, I'd advise you all to do the same thing. And I'll tell you what, I'll meet your fighter up the line there. Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey, maybe at the next lunch stop, huh?
I live alone now. Most of my time I spend in my apartment. Just this morning for breakfast, I had a bowl of Choco Pops and some strawberry Kool-Aid with extra sugar. Almost every day, I go out to the same park and sit on the same bench and remember the same things. I have a very good memory. I can remember things just the way they were. I remember this great idea I had for a painting. I thought of it all myself. My mother said, well, don't paint in here, you'll splatter everything. My father said, well, that's stupid, don't you know all painters are poor? The psychiatrist said, to be a great painter, you have to be neurotic and suicidal. Is that what you want? So, I gave it up. But I'm glad I listened to my friends. If I hadn't listened to them, just think where I'd be now. The other day I was sitting in my apartment, looking out the window. It was drizzling outside like a runny nose. I just finished a bowl of Fruit Loops and a cherry Coke with extra sugar. And I remembered this great idea I'd had. I was going to ask this girl to marry me. I really liked her. But my friend said, well, you don't want to do that. She'll take away your freedom and won't let you go anywhere. Another friend said it'll never work out. You're from different backgrounds. Besides, all women are liars and cheats. The psychiatrist said to bring children into the world is criminal. Besides, all marriages end in divorce. Is that what you want? So, I gave it up. I'm glad I listened to my friends. If I hadn't listened to them, just think where I'd be now. The other day I was sitting on my park bench out in the park. It was a gray day outside and the ground was all muddy snow like a baby's diaper. Right out in front of me was a dead robin. It looked so sickening I almost threw up the bologna and margarine sandwich I'd had for lunch. And then I remembered this great idea I'd had for a business. It would have been fun and worthwhile, too. My friend said, well, if you do that, you're going to have to get licenses and hire more people and pay extra taxes and you'll get an ulcer. Another friend said, well, that's stupid. Who'd buy anything you made? Psychiatrist said, if you're successful, especially if you're successful and make lots of money, you'll be miserable. Is that what you want? So, I gave it up. Oh, I'm glad I listened to my friends. If I hadn't listened to them, just think where I'd be now. I went back to my apartment and made some pineapple jello with marshmallows and extra sugar. And I thought, maybe I shouldn't try to do anything. Maybe I should just follow other people. I fell asleep.
The sun glows hot and bright, filling the empty sky with shimmering light. The light hits the trees and splits, sending shafts of light down to the jungle floor. Here, amidst the dark foliage, I can hardly be seen. My coat is yellow with black stripes. My eyes are black and lethal. My fangs are as long as my claws. I am one-directed, uninfluenced, and I live alone. For some time now, there has been a murderer in the jungle. He doesn't kill to eat, he kills for pleasure, and not even that cleanly. He tells the monkey he will help him, then sews his fingers together. He says he will help the bird, then clips his wings. He says he will help the snake, then ties his tail to a tree. Then he stands smiling while the animal kills himself or dies of starvation. I know whenever this murderer comes into my vicinity, and I leave quickly. I do not want to confront this evil. He is of no concern to me. But the other day, while I was hunting in the jungle, I realized I was looking behind me too often, and I knew he was looking for me. It is one thing to be cautious, but to be fearful is not my way. This murderer was making the jungle sick and suspicious, and with the knowledge came the responsibility. I could feel the wetness on my whiskers as I pushed through the ferns and dropped my head to take a drink from the pool. The birds sing in the trees. Monkeys chatter. Wild boar crashes away through the undergrowth. I know exactly what I want and exactly what I will do when the time comes. I sink back into the ferns to wait. The sounds of the jungle melt into the heat. Then suddenly I hear what I am waiting for. A step, then another step. And from my hiding place I see the murderer approaching. He stops at the edge of the pool, lays down his rifle and black bag and scoops up some water in his hat. I am crouched on all fours, my belly just touching the ground. My ears are flat against my head. I'm staring directly at him. Even now he's smiling. He senses something and looks up. We confront one another for an instant. He drops his hat, picks up his rifle. I spring. He raises his rifle to firing position. With one swipe, I sever his arm from his body. He screams, raises his other arm to ward me off, but I hit him and knock him back and disembowel him with one swipe of my claws. His quivering body is dead before it hits the ground. The smell of fresh blood pumps into my nostrils. His body convulses once, then lies still. This animal is sick and diseased, so I will not eat it. but I take its head in my jaws and drag it to an anthill and leave it. And I take a long drink from the pool to wash away the taste. The shafts of light are slanting now. Soon it will be night. Black velvet night. And I will prowl the jungle and hunt freely once again.
I wake up in my room. It's awfully dark, and it's hot. I'd fallen asleep and my clothes are wrinkled. Marshmallows are floating in the melted jello. And I wondered, how did I get here? Then, suddenly, I had a great new idea.
In the year 1065, I was living in a little old broken-down castle that was set on a hill, surrounded by trees on a little green island out in the ocean. One of the turrets had fallen down, and the chain was broke on the drawbridge, which didn't seem to matter, because there wasn't no water in the moat. Well, it was about this time that I realized that I didn't even have the price of a drink. So I decided then and there to become a soothsayer. Oh, now I was very good at it too, if I do say so myself. Most of me clients was the serfs in the area and a few of the local outlaws who was living out in the woods. But one day, the king himself summoned me to his grand castle over the hill. Well, I didn't know what he wanted. But the second I walked into his royal chambers, he demanded to know how he was going to fare in this great battle that he was marching off to that very afternoon. Well, I didn't know, but I didn't tell him that. Oh, no. I didn't want to wind up stretched on a rack with a couple of hot coals on my eyelids, so I said, Your Majesty, would you be giving me a wee little moment here while I go and consult the ether? I walked over to the window and looked out. Nope, it was too high to jump. So I spit, stamped once, turned around twice, said 3 magic words, which I won't repeat here, and walked up to him and said, Your Majesty, you'll be pleased to know that on the day of the battle, a great and ancient warrior will be guiding your every move, and you will win the greatest victory that anyone in this part of the world has ever seen before. Oh, he liked that. So that afternoon, he went marching off on his white horse, his knights and his foot soldiers raising a cloud of dust behind him. I thought they'd have my neck stretched in a week, but do you know that on the day of the battle, he actually did win? It wasn't the greatest victory he ever seen, but he thought so, and that's all that mattered. It was on his mind, you see. And I put it there. A little bit of hocus pocus on my part. Well, not long after that, I went up into the hills to go fishing. Now, I dearly love to fish. I love to go and just throw out a line. Just throw out a line and see what I catch. Oh, it's beautiful up there. The dark blue lake, the green hills around, the pale blue sky with the warm sun. I'd just thrown out a line. Do you know that in all the time I've been going fishing, I've never caught a darn thing? Well, it didn't matter. I'd just thrown out a line when suddenly I felt a bite. And I thought, saints be praised. But then just off to my left, a door began to materialize in the air. A door. No cottage, no castle, no barn, no nothing, just a door sitting there in the air, about 6 inches off the ground. Well, being a curious sort, I laid down my fishing pole and went over and opened the door. Well, it was dark as far as I could see, which wasn't very far because it was dark. But I heard a voice down at the other end. It said, "Hello!" "Oh, good, the channel's open. There's someone there. Hello! Welcome! Come on through!" Well, I stepped in. The door slammed behind me, and quick as a wink, I fell like a piece of coal down a chute and landed in someone's living room. There was all this overstuffed furniture about, and one of the walls was all glass, and it looked out on the ocean. There was 5 or 6 people there, all dressed in white robes, men and women both. And one of them said, "Oh, good, you'll be the one to tell us." And he wanted to know what year I was from. Well, I told him 1065. Then he told me that they were from a place called Malibu in the year 1989. And I said, "Well, I'm sure you are, but you'll get over that. Now, do you mind if I go on back to my own time?" He said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. The door's locked. You've got to tell us first." I said, Tell you what?" He said, "You've got to tell us about life. How do you live life? How do you handle the problems of life?" Well, I didn't know, but I didn't tell him that. Oh, no, they seemed an awfully desperate bunch. So I said, would you be giving me just a wee little moment here while I go over and consult the ether?" So I went over and I tried the door. Sure enough, it was locked. So I spit. I stamped once, turned around twice, said 3 magic words, which I won't repeat here, then walked up to them and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you'll be pleased to know that the way you handle life is you throw out a line. You just throw out a line. You got trouble over here, you throw out a line. You got a problem here, throw out a line. And pretty soon you'll see that your problems will disappear." Oh, they like that. And one of them said, "You know, there's something I've been wanting to tell me wife for a long time now. I just keep putting it off. I'm going home right now and tell her." And he left. It was a woman. Said she'd promised her kids to take them on a vacation for 1.5 years. She kept putting it off. She says, "I'm going home right now and pack. We're leaving first thing in the morning." Another fella said he'd owed a friend of his money for 5 years. He was going to go home right then and write him a check. Pretty soon they was all gone. I went over and tried the door. Sure enough, it was unlocked. So I went on back to my own time, and I thought, well, there's another fine mess I've gotten myself out of, with a little bit of hocus-pocus on my part. Back at the lake, the sun was going down. My fishing pole was gone, the fish was gone. Well, no matter, I'll get another. But do you know, it's very easy being a soothsayer, because you don't have to rely on the truth. You just use some of your common sense and, well, a little bit of hocus-pocus on my part.
There was some noise in the chimney. I thought it was probably just a stupid cat sneaking around doing his dumb stuff the way he always was, so I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I was all cozy in my little mouse hole. But then there the noise was again. And this time it sounded like a regular person, too. So I thought it must be the people in the house. I tell you, they had been acting crazy lately. They had brought a tree into the house. a whole tree, and they had put it over in the corner. And then they hung lights on it and all this sparkly stuff and colored balls. I couldn't believe it. And then they started making more cookies and candy, which, well, did you see that? That was all right with me, because it gave me a lot to eat, you see. And then they started telling stories, and they would sing, and they was having a good time. And then just tonight, they was giving each other these little packages wrapped in bright paper. And then they hung some socks on the mantel. But that just about took the cake for me. That was too much. Oop! But then there was that noise in the chimney again. So I got out of my bed and I peeked out of the hole in the wall where I lived. And I couldn't believe it. I had to shake my head a couple times because there, standing in the fireplace, was someone with black boots on and red pants, and the rest of him was up the chimney. And I thought, that's it. That is it. A burglar has come to get us. I looked around to see where that stupid cat was, and he was behind the sofa asleep. Sound asleep, he didn't hear nothing. Well then, this guy came out. And sure enough, it must have been a burglar, because he had a white beard, and he was carrying a sack over his shoulder that was full of stuff, and I thought, well, he's already been around the neighborhood, stealing all kinds of things. But then he did the weirdest thing I have ever seen. He laid down the sack and began taking things out of it and sticking them into the socks, and all the time he was doing it, he was humming and smiling. Then I remembered that all the people in my house had been smiling a whole bunch more since they had been giving each other presents and helping each other, and they was nicer too. And I thought, well, maybe when you give something to someone, it makes them smile and be nice. So I thought, well, that's what I'll do to this stupid cat to make him keep from chasing me. Well, just then the man in the red suit finished doing what he was doing. He ate some cookies and drank some milk that was on the table. Then he picked up his sack and went back up the chimney. I ran back to the little den in my mouth hole and got this most favorite thing of mine, the best thing I have. And I went over to the opening and looked out, and that stupid cat was still asleep behind the sofa. So I tiptoed out of the hole, across the rug, and then dived under the sofa. I could see the cat on the other side still asleep, or pretending to be anyway. I crawled under the sofa carrying this thing, you see, all the way up to the cat, and I leaned out and put the thing in front of him. He moved for a second and I thought, oh no, I'm dead. But then he went back to sleep. So I turned around and snuck back under the sofa, and then I got to the other side. I ran slickety-split across the rug and dived into the hole and thought, well, maybe now that would make the cat smile and be nice. Then I went over and peeked out of the hole again. The cat was still sleeping. But there in front of him, right where I had left it, was my most favorite piece of cheese.
She was still young, and besides her family and the preacher, there was only her little dog named Jasper at her burial. The boys had dug her grave in the rocky New England ground. Her father built a casket of pine boards, and her mother dressed her in her church dress, and they lowered her into the ground that rainy afternoon. I remember the first time I ever saw Annie. It was a warm summer day. The cornfield drooped under the hot afternoon sun. Annie was standing with an ear of corn in each hand, pointing them toward the horizon at the clouds. She said, Now watch, the clouds will gallop. And she dropped the corn and shook her hands. And I watched the clouds gallop across the afternoon. Once, she tried to fly off the roof of the barn. She broke her leg. The doctor put a cast on it, but Annie took it off the next day. When her mother asked her why, she said she couldn't heal her leg with a cast on it. Once, when a wild bull had kicked out the side of the barn, and the men were about to shoot him, Annie walked right up to him and led him out to the pasture, where he quieted down and began grazing. Even though she was just two years older than I, Annie taught me to sing without stuttering when the others just laughed at the way I talked. They said she was crazy because she heard voices when the wind blew through the trees. So they sent her away with the doctor, who said he could cure her. He tied her up and took her to the gray building on the hill. She screamed and cried, and they all nodded their heads and said, yes, she really is insane. See how she See how she tries to get free. They put her in ice baths and gave her drugs and shot electricity into her brain because she smiled at the sunset. One night I snuck up to the gray building. Annie looked at me through the wire mesh. Then she pointed to the horizon and shook her hands, and I watched the clouds gallop across the night sky. I sang her a song, and when I left, Annie smiled and waved goodbye. I went away to the city and sang in a chorus until the day I'd heard that the doctor had said that Annie was dead and could now go home. I rushed back, but was three days late for the funeral. It had been raining for a week, and was still raining that day. I went down to the cornfield to see Annie's grave.
her little dog, Jasper, was lying by the grave marker, so soaking wet. He looked up as I drew near, but he didn't wag his tail. The small creek nearby had flooded over. It was almost on Annie's grave. I ran back to the barn and got a shovel and dug a new grave on a small hill well above the creek. Then I dug up Annie's grave and carried the casket up to its new resting place. Just before I put it in the ground, I opened it to say goodbye to Annie. She had rolled over on her stomach. In her hands that were on either side of her head were clumps of hair she had torn out in her panic. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was frozen forever in a scream. I closed the casket up and put it in the grave. Then I covered it over and put two ears of corn as markers. Then Jasper and I walked away through the rain. I will always remember Annie. Whenever I see the clouds gallop across the summer afternoon sky.
All you guys, come on in here. Come on off the field. Come right around here. All you guys, just gather around here. You guys in the front, kneel down so the guys behind you can see. All right, now listen up. Before we go out to the game this afternoon, there are a couple little items that I want to take up with y'all. Now, first of all, it has come to my attention that some of you people are going out on the mountaintops or out into the desert and looking up at the vast night sky with the universe and everything, and the stars and the planets and infinity and eternity and light years and all that space and everything. Then you're coming back and you're saying, oh, wow, do I feel small and insignificant compared to the universe? Well, I want to dispel that rumor right here and now. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take everything in your mind, just take it out and throw it on the floor. Just take it out and throw it. Now, you can pick it up later if you want to, but right now, just take everything out your mind and throw it right on the floor. Now then, I want you to get in your empty mind there a black field. Just a black field, black sky. All right? All right. Now, I want you to lean down and pick up about 1,000,000 stars, and I want you to fling them through the universe like that. All right? There they are, up there sparkling. All right, now I want you to lean over and pick up about 1,000,000 planets. And I want you to scatter them all over the night sky. All right, now there you got it. Right there in your mind, the whole night sky with the infinity and eternity and light years and vastness and everything. And there it is, right in your mind. All right, now then, I want you to start squeezing it down from the corners, from all the corners. Just start squeezing it down, squeeze it on down till it's about the size of a beach ball. Now I want you to take the beach ball and squeeze that down. Just squeeze it on down till it's about the size of a baseball. Now just squeeze it on down a little bit further. Squeeze it on down till the whole thing's about the size of a BB. All right, now right there on that BB, you got the whole universe. You got the stars and planets and infinity and eternity and the vastness of space and light years and everything. All right, now just take that BB and stick it in your pocket. All right, now let me ask you a question here. What is small and insignificant here? You or that BB that you have in your pocket? But I think we all know the answer to that. So now when some dude comes up to you and says, wow, don't you feel small and insignificant compared to the universe? You say, hey, now listen here, dude. I got the whole universe in my pocket, the size of a BB. And I don't even remember which pocket. All right. Now then, the second item of business that I want to take up is that it's come to my attention that some of y'all are padding your helmets. You're padding your helmets. Why, just the other day, I lifted up some old boy's helmet down in the gym, dumped it upside down, about 35 or 40 preconceived ideas just fell right out there on the floor. Well, you cannot play this game with preconceived ideas because you're going to be looking at everything through the eyes of prejudice. All you need to play this game is a good sound goal, a plan to get there, and keep your eyes and ears open along the way. All right, well, look at here. It's just about time to go out and play the game, so all of you take your helmets and dump them upside down, get rid of all them preconceived ideas and notions and everything. All right, now, remember, once we get out on the field, keep your goal in mind, follow your plan, and keep your eyes and ears open along the way. All right, now, you guys want to win this game? Well, you want to win this game? All right, then let's get out there and win. Put.
There was hardly anyone on the train as it moved through the countryside. The snow-covered land slipped smoothly by. Way out there, I could see a lonely house now and again, just turning on their lights against the cold oncoming night. 2 thick-coated horses in the almost dark, steam out of their nostrils eating hay. Then they were gone. The sky was quickly dark. The stars were crisp through the chill air. It wasn't very warm in the train. A man was asleep at the other end of the car, his coat rolled up for a pillow. The Christmas present had fallen on the floor. A few seats away, a young woman sat with her baby. She was staring out the window. She saw me looking at her, reflected in the window, and she half smiled at my reflection. Then she stared beyond that, out into the cold, dark landscape that was slipping away. I turned and gazed back out my window. Then I heard a very soft, "Oh." And I turned and looked at the woman, and I saw her hug her baby to her, very closely and very intensely. Suddenly I felt very close and warm, and a door appeared in the back of my mind. I opened it, and light flooded in, and I heard my father say, "Brrr, brrr, it's cold outside. You can put those logs right on the fire." And as I stepped in, he shut the door behind me. I was standing in my living room. The Christmas tree was all lit up over by the front window. I heard laughter upstairs. My mother came through the swinging kitchen door, carrying a plate of red and green frosted cookies. And behind her came the smell of roasting turkey like a gauze that draped around my head, like the smell of earth that hangs out in the ocean and lets you know home is just over the horizon. Someone was stamping snow off their boots on the back porch, and my little sister and 2 of her cousins were lying on their stomachs in front of the tree, staring at the presents, like sharks staring at a man's legs underwater, hoping to see beyond the tinsel in the pretty paper. I put the logs down and took off my gloves to warm my frozen fingers. In the dining room, my grandma was scolding my grandpa about the best way for him to crack the walnuts that he was already cracking. He looked at me through the doorway, shrugged his shoulders, and continued shelling the walnuts. I took off my thick coat and threw it on the floor by the door and went to stand by my aunt, who had just called me to come sing the tenor part at the piano. There was talk and loud laughter coming out of the kitchen where the windows were steamed. We were singing, sometimes forgetting the second verses, but sounding pretty good. But suddenly, somewhere, in all the warm and familiar sounds, I heard someone very quietly crying. I looked around, trying to locate the person, and then my eyes landed on the young woman in the train, a few seats away, holding her baby. Her eyes with tears, hardly seeing the back of the seat in front of her. I got up and walked awkwardly up the aisle of the swaying car. I put my thick coat around her shoulders. Then I sat down beside her. I held her hand in both of mine, and we rode like that, not looking at each other, but looking straight ahead. And I heard her whisper under her breath, "Merry Christmas." And the train slipped away across the sleeping land into the dark and winter night.
I ain't making a move. I ain't saying a word till somebody pays me. It wasn't always like this, you know. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time it started. I was walking down the street there was some guy standing out on the sidewalk looking at a vacant lot, and I said to his hands. I went up to him and said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And he said, "Oh, God, I got to build a house right here in a couple of months. I can't think. I don't know." I said, "Hey, look, you don't think about it. You just do it. You got a shovel, you start digging and found the cement and the floors and put up the boards and then joists over the roof and the sides and get the plumb and electric cabinets and you move it around and a little of this and a little of that, and there you are." He said, Wow, do you think it'll work?" I said, "I don't know. Try it." A couple months later, I'm reading in the newspaper. There it is. New directions in architecture. Did he invite me to the opening? No. Did he pay me? No. Did he say thank you? No. Walking down a hallway in an office building, there's a lady sitting at a desk, typewriter, blank piece of paper. She got her head in her hands. I went over to her and I said, "Hey, what's going on here?" I said, "Oh, God, I've got to write a book, a whole book. In a couple of months, I don't know what to do. I can't think. What is that?" I said, "Hey, look, you don't think about it. You just do it. Just sit down there and start typing, you know. You got the farm on the hill and the corn and the son and the girl, and they move around, and the car breaks down, the guy in the rain, and the hayloft, and moving, the bad guys, and the car chase, and the fist fighting, and finally winning, and the guy and the girl and the sun going down, moving around, and a little of this and a little of that, and there you are." She said, "Wow, you think it'll work?" I said, "I don't know. Try it." A couple of months later, I'm walking down the street, seeing a bookstore. There it is. Book of the month. Did she send me a copy? No. Did she pay me? No. She say thank you? No. Walking down the street, guy standing out on the sidewalk, got his head in his hands. I went up to him and said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And he said, "Oh, God, I got a party here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what to do. I can't think. What is it?" I said, "Hey, look, pal, you don't think about it. You just do it. You get the tables and the tablecloth, crepe paper and the balloons and move it and lights and a pool and a band and a dip and the chips and move it around and a little of this and a little of that, and there you are." He said, "Wow, you think it'll work?" I said, "I don't know. Try it." Next day, I read in the paper. There it is. Party of the year. Did he invite me to the party? No. Did he pay me? No. Did he say thank you? No. So, I ain't saying a word. I ain't making a move till somebody pays me. I wanted to get even. I wanted to let people know exactly how I feel in the deep of my heart. My back is bent and my face is ugly. Whenever I walk down the street, the mothers hide their children, the old men spit, and the young boys and girls throw things at me. Even the Russian priest who raised me and taught me to speak could hardly look at me. And so, in 1881, I snuck away from the village in the night and made my way to Paris. There I thought the people are more free, and I would go unnoticed. But it was not to be. There, it was the same. And so one night while I was sitting in my little room, looking out the window across the Seine through the mist to the great cathedral Notre Dame, I realized what I should do. So early in the morning before the sun rose, I ran out of my room down the street to the little hotel where I was employed, taking out the sewage and sweeping the walk. I worked quickly, for I had to be gone by mid-morning. In my haste, I tipped over one of the chamber pots. The concierge, a large, red-faced man, kicked me and threatened to terminate my employment. And while I was on my hands and knees cleaning up, I thought to myself, today, I will get even with you. Later, I was out in front, sweeping the walk. 2 lovely young ladies came down the street, dressed in bustles and accompanied by their young gentleman friends. As they drew near, I quickly stepped aside and hid my face, and thought to myself, today, I will get even with you too. A carriage rolled by and splashed muddy water on me, and I shouted out, if you only knew what was in store for you. The chimes from the great cathedral rang out, and I knew I had not much time. I ran down the street back to my little room, hardly hearing the curses of some people I bumped into along the way. I was singing to myself, you will see, you will see. In my little room, I washed very carefully and put on my best jacket to hide the tear in my shirt. And I ran out down the steps and down the street and across the bridge and out into the great square before the cathedral.
was teeming with people, all beautifully dressed, and conversing in just the right tones of solemnity. I watched as they filed into the church, and I thought, very soon now you will know how I feel. I ran down along the side of the church under the great buttresses to the back, where there was a door for priests only. I went inside. It was very dark. I made my way up a circular staircase to a small balcony where there was an organ. From here, I could look out at the whole congregation. The only sound was of their shuffling feet as they made their ways to their pews. Then it was silent. The priest stepped out. As one, the people dropped to their knees and bowed their heads. Now, I thought, now I will show you how I feel in the deep of my heart. I sat down at the organ, my feet barely touching the pedals, and began to play. All the feelings that had been locked inside me for so long poured out of my hands and feet into the organ and out into the great cathedral. A shaft of sunlight shot through the great stained glass window like a rapier, flooding the floor with rainbows of colors. And as the ecstasy continued to pour out of me, the roof of the cathedral folded back to reveal the warm sun. And it shone down upon us, down into every crevice. One by one, the people rose off their knees to gaze into the light. Some of them held out their arms with joy. Others folded their hands with quiet prayer, and still others laughed as they had never laughed before. And as I continued to fill the air with music, the sky itself folded back to reveal the great white light of infinity, and it shone down upon us and filled us all with blinding ecstasy. Life has not been easy for me, nor has it changed. And to this day, no one knows who was playing the organ. But I do, and I will die content, knowing that for one great moment, I let the people know how I feel.